everyone, my name is Jessica Rampetsreiter. Today we're going to be covering employment law in the case of Integrity Staffing Solutions versus Jesse Busk. This is a case that actually made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The goal throughout this presentation is just to kind of review the details of the case and kind of review how they determined the outcome. In reviewing our case details, there's just a couple of key points that we want to hit on today. We're going to start with the parties, the facts, the procedure, the issue, the holding, the reasoning, the result, and last but not least, the effect/importance of the case, and how it might affect other businesses and future issues that they might stumble across. First, we're going to review the parties of our case. On the left here, we've got our plaintiff respondents, Jesse Busk and Lori Castro. These are employees that are hired through Integrity Staffing to work for Amazon and the facilities in Las Vegas and Findlay, Nevada. And then on our right here, we've got our defendant appellant, Integrity Staffing Solutions, Inc. Now this is a company that's subcontracted through Amazon. They hire workers that are temp to hires. So they start off as temporary workers, and then Amazon decides whether they want to place them as permanent workers. Integrity Staffing Solutions developed a new security policy in which all workers must go through security screens at the after the shift is completed for the day, before they go home. This is just to ensure that no one walks away with any merchandise. They just want to put this in place to put up extra measures just to make sure nothing's being stolen. So with this case at hand, Jesse and Lori both have determined, along with many other employees, that they want compensation for those additional 25 minutes, and Integrity Staffing Solutions has deemed that that time is non-compensable. So with this case, we're just kind of going to go through the details with that and determine how the courts reached their decisions. Alright, so next we're just going to review the key facts of the case here. So both Jesse and Lori, as I mentioned earlier, they're employees of Integrity Staffing. They're paid hourly wages. And according to the FSLA Act, this just means that as far as hourly goes, anything past 40 hours is generally compensated for overtime. Now, their main position here, they're required to retrieve products from shelves and package them up for delivery. Those are their principal activities for the day. Now, Integrity Staffing required the employees to undergo the security check. This is just put in place, again, to ensure that no employee theft was occurring, that no merchandise was being stolen at the end of the day. And Busk and Castro claimed that they were entitled to the compensation. Now, the employees had to wait an additional 25 minutes to pass through these security checks, and understandably so. You know, each day it's, close to a half hour that they're not being compensated for. So they wanted to ensure that they were receiving some sort of compensation for the time that they were spent past their 40 hours. And then the employees claimed that the company should have reduced security checks to minimal time. So it wasn't so much a matter of them having to stay a little bit after, but the 25 minutes, that was definitely pushing it. So now they expect some compensation for that. Next, we're just going to get into some of the procedural details of the case. This actually all began in 2010 when Busk and Castro, they filed a putative class action lawsuit against Integrity Staffing Solutions. Initially, this started at the district court level, but they dismissed the complaint and held that the screenings were not integral and necessary to the principal activities. As we can recall from earlier, those principal activities were taking items off the shelves and packaging those up for delivery. Screenings were not necessary to Busk and Castro being able to do their work. So they said that the screenings were non-compensable. Now, the case then made its way over to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. They actually reversed that decision of the district court and held that the activities were compensable because the activities are necessary to the work performed. They're still on the employer's property, and therefore, that's time being taken out of the employee's days. They should be compensated for that. Because of that discrepancy, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to grant certiorari to the U.S. Court of Appeals, and they decided to take the case from there. Now, there are two big issues that we kind of run into here with this case. The first being, are security screenings integral and necessary to employees' principal activities? Is are those screenings really essential to the employees being able to, do their daily tasks, such as taking items off the shelves and packaging those up for delivery? And 2, are employees entitled to compensation for the extra 25 minutes spent past their shift end time? So now that we've covered those issues, what did the court have to say? So for both of those issues, the court held no. For the first issue, they said that the activity is necessary to the principal activity only when the employee could not perform without impairing performance of the principal activity. So as we discussed earlier, the principal activities for both Busk and Castro involved taking items off the shelves and packaging them up for delivery. Those are the principal activities. As far as screening goes, whether they have screening or not, that's not going to impair their performance. That has no effect on their ability to perform their daily tasks. And then secondly, the security checks are considered post-liminar activities that are not work of consequence performed for employer. So under the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, they have a component called the Portal to Portal Act, which basically just says that employers are not held liable for compensating activities that are post-liminar to those principal activities. So now that we've kind of gone through the holding, we're just going to discuss some of the reasoning that led the court to reach this decision. Next, we are just going to explore some of the reasoning behind the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. First and foremost, the court has said that the employees are entitled to compensation under the Fair Labor Standards Act when they are performing activities that are integral and necessary to the employee's principal activities. Again, those principal activities for the warehouse employees include removing items from the shelves and packaging those up for delivery. We're just going to explore a couple court cases that fall under this test right here. The first one was a case relating to battery plant employees. The clothes changing and showering activities were necessary for productive work, therefore they are compensable. In the plant, chemicals are toxic to human beings and are indispensable to the performance of productive work. Obviously, if employees are getting sick because of the toxins, they're not able to do their job correctly. So the clothes changing and showering activities are necessary for that particular position. The second case, this is Mitchell versus King Packing Company. They determined that the time meat packers spent sharpening their knives was compensable because dull knives would otherwise slow down production time. And then this other court case right here, this one actually failed the test. So this is IBP. Poultry workers, the time that they spent waiting to don their protective gear, they deemed was not compensable because it was 2 steps removed from the principal activity. So, of course, wearing protective gear, that is important, but it wasn't exactly necessary to that, or immediately necessary to their principal activities. So those are just a couple of the cases that fell under that category for testing. Now, as the next part for our reasoning here, so security screenings, they're not principal activities which employees are required to perform. So, as we mentioned before, employee staffing employed workers strictly to retrieve products from shelves and package these for delivery. That's it. Ultimately, they could have done away with these screenings altogether without impairing the employee's ability to work. This was just something that they decided to add on. It's not part of, it doesn't inhibit the employees, the lack of the screenings does not inhibit the employees from doing their daily routine. So that's kind of how the court came to their conclusion with their holdings. And of course, ultimately, the final result of our case, Small Claims Court was reversed, and Integrity Staffing Solutions came out the victor for this one. They did not need to compensate employees for the time spent doing security checks. The court deemed that obviously the security checks were not compensable. They're post-preliminary activities that would not otherwise impair the employees' workers to complete their daily routine. So in this case, Integrity Staffing Solutions came out on top and has now set precedents for other cases that might come up that are similar. So now that we've reviewed all the major details of the case, why does it matter? Why is this so significant? We're going to review the effects and the importance of this court case. So first and foremost, employers need to properly specify in employee handbooks what is compensable time. Anytime an employer decides to add in a post-preliminary activity, preliminary activity, that they deem is not compensable, employees need to be aware of it, so they kind of know what to expect up front. Integrity staffing should consider the time and cost for security checks. So if this is taking 25 minutes, maybe they could consider adding additional security personnel to kind of make that time go by a little bit faster. Or maybe they should just find a separate way to, a separate security measure altogether, But either way, obviously going to court is going to cost a lot of time and money. So in the future, moving forward, integrity staffing, other businesses need to determine how their decisions are going to affect, their employees, and possibly determine alternate solutions to that. Third, employees should clarify what time is compensable. So integrity staffing solutions, the next way that they should approach this is they should have a company-wide meeting with all of their employees, and employees need to ask questions just so they can get an idea of what to expect, what is compensable, why is this compensable, and then the court is the correct. I would venture to say that the court is correct on the ruling, just kind of deemed by the different tests and previous cases. However, it should have encouraged integrity staffing to minimize its wait time. Ultimately, integrity staffing did come out on top in this case ruling, but they still might decide to continue to do what they're going to do just because they won the case. Truthfully, they should probably add additional, security personnel on board just to minimize the wait time, to avoid any future problems employees might have. This dispute could have potentially been avoided altogether by holding a meeting in the first place to determine the procedures and reasonable wait times. So anytime a new procedure policy is put in place, it's very important for businesses to be able to sit down with their employees and kind of review that in detail and provide that opportunity to ask questions. A meeting like this could have avoided the case altogether. Obviously, court cases cost both time and money, so and ultimately it could even cost a company its reputation in the end. Obviously, integrity staffing won with this, but these are just some things to consider in the future, especially for businesses who might encounter the same issue. And ultimately, that closes our case for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Obviously, this was a pretty significant case. It started off as something small and made its way all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So definitely something to research a little bit more in detail. And again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for allowing me to review the details of my case today.